You know, if you'll allow me, I think we should get an overview of this first of all.
Well, why don't we do that?
The overview was given by the one person, apart from Jesus Christ, who could give it to us, and that was the Blessed Virgin Mary. She did appear 6 times in 1917, and the last time was October 13, 1917, to 3 children and to 75,000 people. There was a miracle, the miracle of Fatima, at noontime at Fatima in Portugal. Fatima is a small little hamlet 75 miles from Lisbon, the capital of Portugal. Let's not delay for the moment. We can go back to it later on, the miracle of the sun, because it's the paramount miracle of the 20th century, perhaps the 5 centuries. But she did convey 3 secrets to those children and told them not to publish them yet, but to convey them to the local bishop. It was an ultimatum. The world is gone so far by this time, the secret said, that unless Russia is converted by being consecrated to my Immaculate Heart, then faith will disappear from nations and continents. Cardinals and bishops and priests will fall like leaves into hell. In other words, it was an either or. But if the Pope, in union with the bishops of the Church, in 1960, consecrates Russia, just Russia, the Soviet Union, the USSR, to my Immaculate Heart, then Russia will be converted and faith will be restored. Well, the sad aftermath of this is this, that Pope John XXIII, whom I knew, did open the secret. And he opened it privately, first of all, in Castel Gandolfo in August 1959. And then in 1960, he opened it in the presence of several cardinals. Cardinal Bea was there, my cardinal, and with 2 Portuguese interpreters. And reading it and finding out that he was supposed to publicly, in union with all the bishops, and they were gathering into Rome, by the way, 2 years later, he was supposed to consecrate Russia to the Immaculate Heart of Mary and declare it to be a source of evil, but would be converted. He decided that Nikita Khrushchev, who was the strong man in Russia at that time, would take this as an act of war. Now, do you know, you may not know, that under Nikita Khrushchev, between 1958 and 1963, the most virulent anti-religious persecution took place in the Soviet Union.
It's interesting. I do have family in Russia. And what a lot of people don't know is that the persecution under Khrushchev was even more severe than that of Stalin.
Much more severe, much more severe. Well, so John said, I can't do that. I can't, because Nikita Khrushchev then would stop talking to me. At that time he was talking to John because John had one dream. He wanted observers from the Russian Orthodox Church to be present at his council. So at that meeting of cardinals, he took a sheet of paper and wrote on it, Questo, meaning the letter, non è per nostri tempi, is not for our times. Put it back in the box of the letter and closed it. He refused the mandate of Our Lady for his own good geopolitical reasons. I think it was short-sighted, and above all, I think he disobeyed Our Lady. But I'm a simple priest, I'm not Pope. That's my judgment. When Paul VI came in, he read the letter and decided to do nothing about it. John Paul I read the letter, but he had only 34 days to live. John Paul II read the letter at the beginning of his pontificate in 78, October 78, and put it aside. If you want an overview of what's happened, take it like this. How come, or take an image, I think it was in 1966, suddenly all electric power disappeared from the northeast corner of the United States. The reservoir filled with juice, as we say in the United States, suddenly was emptied. Nobody has as yet explained how it all disappeared like that. Similarly, if you look at the church between 1965 and 1975, suddenly Catholicity disappeared. Suddenly. Priests left, nuns left, suddenly bizarre ceremonies took place, suddenly every practice like devotion to the Sacred Heart, to the Immaculate Heart of Mary, confraternities, sodalities, sendings to Paul work, pilgrimages, benedictions of the Blessed Sacrament, the habit of visiting the Blessed Sacrament, children's first Holy Communion, marriage, abortion, contraception, homosexuality, everything was turned upside down. Suddenly, the reservoir of Catholicism suddenly was sucked out, disappeared. And the only theological way you can look at that, theology, not historical, in the secular sense, is that God withdrew grace. God withdrew grace, sanctifying grace, without which you can't be Catholic. The biggest triumph of Satan is the destruction of the Mass. Because without the Mass, without valid priests saying valid Masses, being ordained validly by validly ordained bishops, we have no Mass, we have no Blessed Sacrament, the presence of Jesus is wiped out.